No two tricks that I've created ever start in quite the same way. And by that I mean, when I say start, I don't mean the performance. I mean more the germ, the idea, the spark of the idea. And several years ago, it occurred to me that here in the Western Hemisphere, to be precise, we tend to see the world in this term, in this perspective. And it occurred to me that actually, there's a whole other, of course, there's a whole other side to the world that here in, the Western world, we don't really think of the world in those terms so much as these terms. And I started thinking about that, and that was the idea that sort of led to me combining a principle I've been playing with for many years with a presentation and with some visuals that, together make for a trick that is unlike any other trick in my entire repertoire. I've got a whole lot of magic tricks, quote unquote, and mentalism tricks, and this is definitely sort of a mentalism, the notion of being able to predict someone's impossibly free choice, you're able to predict it. So this whole thing started there, and I combined a principle I've loved for years with some visuals and all this to make this trick, which I know you're going to get a lot of mileage out of. This is a real performer's trick, and by that I mean this is so easy, you're going to laugh. How easy and yet how absolutely convincing this is. I love that combination. When something's so simple that I can totally relax, know it's sleight of hand, nothing advanced, very simple, and I can just focus on connecting with the presentation and connecting with the audience through the presentation. And it's absolutely convincing. All the details are there. Everything can be examined. Okay? So this is XFACTOR. I've got a whole bunch of notes here. I want to share with you the basic handling, setting up the props, all that kind of thing. And as I mentioned, this effect is what I consider to be undeniable. All the pieces are there. There's no way people can escape the impossibility and the accuracy of your prediction, but also the obvious fact that they're totally free. Their choice is totally free. So I love that kind of combination of things. So let's jump into this. And I do want to mention one other thing before we go into this, and that is you can even repeat this trick. I'm going to show you exactly how you can repeat the trick with a different outcome, and even add at the very end of the video, I'm going to even add a little bit of a magic moment as well. There's so many things you can do with this. Personally, I hardly ever repeat the trick. I'd rather take that time and move on to another experience with the audience. But every now and then, first a performance style. Maybe a performance style is, I really want to nail this trick. So repeating it's a great way to do it. Obviously, keep that in mind. Okay, so this is XFACTOR, and I know you're going to really enjoy it. Let's take a look at all the cool props you got with this trick and how to set this up, and one other thing you need to make, which is going to be easier for you to make. Okay? So you got a couple of postcards. I made sure that these look beautiful. I mean, they're gorgeous colors and they look 100% legit. I also made them. There are a couple of different sizes of postcards in the world. I made these a little bit smaller, just a titch smaller than the standard postcard. Again, there are postcards out there this exact size, but it's all about making it practical and portable. And so a smaller postcard means a smaller envelope you can use, and it all is basically small to carry. Now, in the preview and in the information, the product information on this, I mentioned that I've included enough of the globe, the beautifully printed heavy cardstock globe images to last you for countless performances. And you might open this and think, well, there's only 4. How that's supposed to last me for countless performances? Well, this is the secret to this trick, because you actually can use the same one over and over and over again. Even though every time the spectator would swear they marked an X or a circle or a dot on it, you get to use the same one over and over and over. And this is using, the cool thing is this is using a Sharpie marker. So it's so compelling, so convincing. This is where you need to prepare something. But let's see. Yeah, so here's the thing. I've got 2 Sharpie markers, standard Sharpie markers. They might look, even if you look at them very closely, okay? They might look identical, but they're not. Because this Sharpie marker, if I take this one, okay, and I do a little bit of marker, you'll see how much ink is actually left. This is a dry marker. It's an old principle I've explored for many years. It's a dry marker. No matter how much somebody pushes this against a piece of paper or their palm or anything, they'll never get a mark off this marker, even though it looks exactly like a Sharpie marker. Okay, now, there's 2 ways to make one of these. One, get a glass of water. Take a Sharpie marker, turn this upside down, put it in the water, and let it soak in there for a couple of days. Okay, you'll see all the ink comes out. Then when you come out, what you need to do then is give it a good squeeze with a paper towel at the end of it, and then leave it out in the sun, let it dry. Okay, that's one way to do it, and you don't need anything but a glass of water. Okay, however, I have found over the years a much more effective way is to get some clear nail polish. Clear nail polish. Okay. All you have to do is put a very light coat, let it dry, another very light coat for a good measure, and that's it. Let it dry. Even from an inch away, it looks exactly like an ordinary Sharpie marker, but there's no way to get any ink out of it. So for this, what you're going to need is you're going to need a dry marker. You need to make a dry marker, and you're going to need another marker. Hopefully that didn't dry out there. A normal Sharpie marker as well, because you're going to take the normal Sharpie marker. All right. This is how you prepare one of the globes, okay? Let's assume I'm going to be forcing for Australia, okay? So as long as they make a mark somewhere on the continent, the island of Australia, you will be good to go. So, now again, you can do it just a dot. If you prefer for them to put it behind their back and put a dot on it anywhere they want, that's fine. Or try to make a little circle. I prefer an X. I just like the languaging, and I always say, try to make a small X anywhere. Okay, so what I'm going to do now to prepare for this, I'm going to take my marker that works, and I'm going to put kind of a small sloppy X. You don't want it too neat. Sort of just a small sloppy X there, okay? It's just a small sloppy X. Now, the reason I want it sloppy is because, of course, if it looks perfect, it's going to immediately raise suspicion. People are going to go, how did the guy behind his back perfectly mark it? The other reason, so I want it a little sloppy, okay? The other reason, too, is I want it small enough. Make sure that's dry. That's never coming off there now. It's small enough that I can show the globe very fairly, okay? I can show this globe very fairly, front and back, and no one would ever think I'm trying to conceal a thing, but I've concealed this under my fingertip or 2 fingers or thumb the entire time, okay? So now you're coming up to speed. How many principles are involved to make this a self-working, astonishing piece of psychic mentalism kind of thing? Next, what we do. We're going to take this and we're going to fold it in half, and we want to fold it in half pretty much straight down the middle here, not like this, not like this. We want this oriented in the bottom right corner here like this. So, and again, you don't have to get too anal or detailed about it. Let's just do this. I'm doing this, trying to keep it nice and neat though. That's my prep, okay? This is my prep. I've got the X on Australia. Okay, I've got that there. I'm going to take this, tuck this inside here. All right, so now this is, even though it opens up to a nice 4-inch, I figured this is such a nice way to keep it really convenient. And then I've got my Welcome to Sydney postcard. Take that, slip that in here like that. Okay, I've got this, I've got that. And then finally, I've got my dry marker. Okay, got my dry marker, got this, got that. So now I am 100% set to go. You've made your dry marker, you've got all the props ready to go, and now you're ready to go into this really sweet trick. This is the handling that I personally use 98% of the time. It's so direct, it's so quick. It's one of the things I like about this trick so much is it's undeniable. It's very visual. People will remember it for a long time because of the visuals, and I can do it quite quickly. It's fun to have some mentalism. If it's your style, you want to take some time and drill it down in the presentation, great. But you can do this very quickly as a convincer of your psychic abilities, okay? The one other thing I'll mention off the top here is I have performed this trick many times without having the real marker. I carry the 2 around, without having the real marker used before. But if you have someone sign a card or you write a prediction down or something with the real marker and they see the marker is functioning, then it's even more convincing that this is a real marker. But this principle is so left of center, the last thing they're going to think is, I wonder if the marker doesn't work and somehow he pre-marked it but concealed it and blah, blah, blah. It's too complicated. So here's the handling, okay? Boom. You got your dry marker, remember? Take these things out and say, let's try something here, okay? I want to do something. I've got a sense of something here, and it's something that I think will be really cool. I'm not sure if it's going to work, and I always love emphasizing that with my mentalism. Not sure if it's going to work here, but what I have is I actually have a little globe. It's a globe of the world here, as you can see here, okay? And it's got what we know to be the normal, the Western Hemisphere on one side, and the Eastern Hemisphere on the other. Okay, so I show it front and back, and you know what I'm doing because of the preparation, right? Okay, say, look, I'm going to fold this in half. I want you to take this and hold it behind your back. And they do. They take that, they hold that behind their back. So you've got it behind your back. Okay, before you open it up, and this is when I take this out. This is a prediction. This is actually a postcard of one city on one continent, in one country, in the entire world. I'm going to leave that right there in full view. Boom. They've got this behind their back, remember. Or they can hold it under the table, right? And say, okay, now behind your back, what I want you to do is I want you to open it up. And they do. This is behind their back. And I want you to say, I want you to turn it over again and again and again behind your back so you have no idea. So there's no way I could know. Okay? Now, we could, of course, do this with your eyes closed. You could hold it in the front, but then maybe you wouldn't have a chance, and I could pull a fast one, or your friend could pull a fast one. Now, you're in total control. You're holding it. You got it behind your back, and nobody in the world, I think you'd agree, could know which way is facing up or which way is facing down, which they've done. Now, when they do this behind their back, of course, if somebody were looking behind their back, if they had eyes behind their head, they would see this mark. But of course, at this point, they never do. Then at some point, they say stop. Okay, and they stop it. And they have no idea which way is facing up or down. Remember that. Then you take out your marker. Take the cap off. And I say, I'm going to ask you to take this very carefully, but be careful. I don't want you getting any of the ink on your shirt or on your fingers, so really be careful behind your back. And I always say that really sells the reality of the marker. Hold it behind your back, and they do. Say, I want you to, are you right-handed or left-handed? They can change the two behind their back, whatever they want. Say now, you don't know which way is facing up and you don't know which way is facing down, but on either side, I want you to try to make a little X. Now, the cool thing about this principle that I've sort of been working on for a long time is if it were square, they might have a sense of where the corner is. Okay? But because this is a perfect circle, they really, and behind their back, they really have no idea where they're marking. And because this mark is not just at an edge, and it's not right smack in the middle, again, they won't really have a sense of exactly where they're marking. So behind their back, and you'll emphasize, make a small X somewhere behind your back. Try to make it, be a little sloppy, I know. They back there, they make a little mark. You have them bring it forward, and immediately take it back to them again, put the cap on like that, okay? And put this away, okay? Put it away. Now, they just think they've made a mark, of course. But wherever they've marked the X, of course, there's nothing. There's just the pre-marked one. We know that. So now you ask them to say, twist it again over and over and over. And it's very important to disorient them again. Boom, boom, boom. Okay. Now I want you to close it back up, which they do, and bring it forward. Boom, like that. And they close it back up and bring it forward. Now look at the position you're in. They know they handled the marker. They know they put a little mark. Beforehand, you showed it. I mean, this is such a simple thing to do. You showed it. You could even put a little pencil dot, just a pencil dot right there, so that you always know exactly where that X is. So that you can always make sure when you're turning it over with your fingers. You can double finger it if you want. You can single finger it if you want to be real. You could show it like this. Literally cover the X with your thumb and show this. I mean, very, very fair before this trick even started, right? They put it behind. They just put a mark. They bring it forward like this. Now it's up to you to either have them open it up and show everybody, okay, and you can even do one of these. Kind of blow on it, make sure it is dry, give it a wave. I don't want, okay, and remind, and then at that point call out, okay, so you didn't do Western Hemisphere, you did Eastern Hemisphere, and it looks like you just got the edge of Australia. You had any city in the world to choose from. Or you do it the other way, right, where they're still holding this. They could even have this still behind their back. And you open it, have somebody take this out, open this up, or you could even put the postcard down. And then you reveal this, right? Then they come forward and show. Or, I often find theatrically it's cool to break it into pieces. Little peek, little peek. And by that I mean, have them bring this forward first, okay? Now, of course, when they close it, they might close it this way and bring it forward, and they see the X right there, and that's okay. But have them bring it forward first. Then take the postcard out, lay it down. Then have them open this and reveal, and then you've got that. So you go boom, 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 back and forth. But either way, you've just done something that makes no sense. No sense at all. They had a totally free choice of making a mark anywhere on this funky little globe. And somehow you were able to perfectly predict the one city, the one country, the one continent in the entire world. As I've mentioned, I almost only ever do this trick once, okay? What I like to do is I do it once, I take it, I tuck it away, maybe get another prediction out, or maybe go into another trick of some kind, something like that, and then I'll go in, but sometimes what I'll do is I'll say, wait a second. I'll say, would you like to maybe try it one more time? And in fact, and then I either take out a second envelope or just go into my pocket and I say, you know, I actually have another prediction. And I take out the Rio de Janeiro postcard, okay? And I can take this, hand it to them, have them do the same thing again where they twist it end and end and end and end. They open it up. Again, I give them the marker. They make a mark an X somewhere on it. And when they bring it back and they open it up, of course, now they find that along with their original mark that they made, they've marked it somewhere else. They made a sloppy X actually right down around Rio de Janeiro. And to do that, if you want to repeat the trick, what I have is I've made two. So I make my first one with the X, right? Australia, good to go. All good to go like that, okay? That's my first one. My second one has Australia as the first, and then I have a little messy mark on Rio. And again, remember, it can be X's, it can be little circles. You could ask someone to make just a dot somewhere, okay? It's up to you, okay? And then I have this closed shut, this double prediction one, closed shut with the X showing here. And I just have this. This is why I have one side of this envelope. This holder is opaque. I have that in there like that. So I can start everything where we want, right? Boom, like this. Take this out, as we know, okay? Open this up. I can do the show where I show it on both sides very fairly, but I've got my secret X. I can do it. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to start to put it away. I'm going to make sure the X is showing, okay? And you just have to remember which way your X is showing here. And I've got the same thing going here like this, okay? Got the X showing on the outside, X showing on the outside. So what I can do is start to put it away, right? Is I can take this and say, hey, that was pretty cool, but we'll start to put it away, look at someone, and then say, wait a second. I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, what if I had done it? So you start to put it away, give some eye contact, look around and say, I know what you're thinking. Is there any way we could do that again? And by then you've just switched. I mean, even though this looks exactly like this, okay? I've switched the one, and again, you can start by putting it as if you're just going to put it away here, come up here, do your switch, and say, wait a second, I know what you're thinking, and you've made that invisible switch, right? And that's the key. Okay, and I've switched this in. Now I can put this away again, boom, it's gone. I can take this, hand it to them, it's very fair. We see that initial mark they made, have them put it behind their back, do the whole thing again, flip, 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 give them the marker this, and then of course you've got that reveal at the end. Now, a couple of, here, the Rio, the perfect repeat. Now, two quick ideas with this. Number one, I don't repeat it because I'd rather, like I mentioned earlier, go on doing something else. I'd rather create another experience with the audience. But this might suit somebody. Also, keep in mind, well, I think this principle of them putting behind their back, they open it up, they go like this, they put a little mark, everything. Well, I've used it, if not thousands of times, certainly hundreds of times in different tricks, and never been caught once. Okay, it's very deceptive. When you do it a second time, then, you know, you're running the risk of someone trying to get a sense now they know where things are going, and the mark and things, you're really opening up there's a better chance of you getting busted on this. So that's the other reason why I may not do it. I have done it twice, more than a few times, and it flew every single time, but I'd rather keep it simple, okay? One other thing I wanted to mention, though, is you could, of course, which would be kind of cool, is if you use, rather than one envelope, if you use two identical envelopes, okay, you could switch in this magically. And by that I mean, or even this, let's say you've done it once, boom, they mark there, you reveal that, ta-da, it's amazing, da-da-da. Now, if you're holding on to this, okay, and you go into your jacket or your case or whatever to get this out, all right, at that point, what you can do is you can reach down to your case or in your pockets and switch this one for this one. Which means that if I go down to my case, I come back out, having just done the Sydney review, if I come back out with this, drop that on the table there, and then I can take this and start to put it away and do the switch, the whole thing, I can actually get one ahead down here. So that after they do the mark and I say, let's try it one more time, and they open up, boom, like this, and this time they get that, you have this moment where you can come over. Or even use the magic marker again and say, actually, you ever wonder why they call it a magic marker? And you can combine the second performance with also an impossible change of the first postcard into the second postcard. So beautiful combination there of you got magic you got mentalism, and I think that particularly in a stand-up performance, more of a theatrical setting, that's a way to really make sure that this is a sort of a mentalism and magic in a way that it's going to hit really, really hard, because one effect truly builds on the other. I wanted to share a couple of last ideas with you here, but again, I'm excited for you to go out and do this. I always warn my students, though, in a way, the easier the trick is to do, the more you need to practice it. Now, what I mean by that is, when a trick requires advanced sleight of hand, you know you're going to have to practice it. You practice the presentation, the timing, the moves, all this stuff. It's obvious. A trick like this is so easy. The temptation is to watch this video once, mess around with it for a second, and go show it to your brother or your father or friends at work or whatever. But I really encourage you to give it some time to work out, because it's the handling. It's really about the audience management is the work here, to make sure your presentation is short, to the point, that you really do things. So even though this is so easy to do, it requires no real sleight of hand whatsoever. The props and thinking would perform, sort of everything works for you, supports you on this, does all the big work. Please rehearse it, because I want that first time you do it, for the right person at the right place, I want you to get that reaction we all love to get, that insane, that look from them like, what? You want that. If you can get that the first or second time you perform this, then you'll have that confidence, you'll have that knowledge and certainty that this rocks for you the way you do it. And then from then on, you'll be able to do it again and again and have a great time with it. Now, last little tip here for you. Two things. Here's one. I've been using this in shows now probably for 3 or 4 months, okay? And I want you to see, I've actually put a piece of tape on there, because after about, I don't know, the 8th or 10th or 12th time with the same globe, sometimes you'll find this starts to crack a little bit along here, because it's just cardboard after all. So if you just get a piece of clear tape, put it down, and really press it down nice and clean, got a little picture of a globe here, okay? It doesn't in any way, it's not like it makes it suspicious or doesn't mean you can't do it again. In fact, I would argue there's something even more down to earth and kind of, trustworthy, convincing every day about a little bit of tape on something. So that's one thing you can do to make sure you get the most mileage out of all the discs I've included, all right? The other thing I wanted to mention is, sure, the postcards are cool, but you can also do a written prediction thing, and what I'm going to suggest you to hear, okay? So let's say I've got it set up. I've got my X hidden on the inside where I want, and I've got this tucked in on that side there, and I have a piece of paper, okay? And what you can do is when you take this out, like this, okay, and you do your thing, and you show it front and back apparently, hand it to, and being careful to cover your X, hand it to the person behind your back. You take out your marker and you say, I'm going to make a prediction, okay? Got a slip of paper here, and I look them closely in the eyes. I go, okay, trying to get a sense. I often use that line, the eyes are the windows of the soul, but they're also a crystal ball. I can get a sense of your past, your present, and the future. Okay, I'm gonna write a prediction here. Look them in the eyes and go, okay, I think I've written a prediction down. Okay, I'll leave that right there. Now, all I've done is, before the trick even started, on this piece of paper, I wrote Australia with my real marker. But by pretending, right during the performance, by pretending to write with the dry marker, opening up and just pretending to write the word Australia on it, I'm really selling the idea that this, now again, I don't want you, don't run when you're not being chased. Very important idea in magic. And no one's gonna think, is it a dry marker? That's crazy, it doesn't make any sense. But here, it absolutely undercuts that idea. So you can have this here, like this, or even show it to someone, having just drawn, say, okay, I want you to remember my prediction, okay? Now I'm gonna give this to you, careful, don't get, and the segue from here to taking this, now it really flows, I think, and really even further sells. But I also think showing the postcard is very dramatic too. So one of the things I try to do when my students or fans show enough faith in me to purchase one of my products is to do this very thing. Give you lots of options, lots of ideas, the psychology around it, all that. Because personally, I'm not interested in just revealing the secret. I'm trying to really help you see and appreciate the magic, the impossibility of what you're doing and how this is designed. Thank you so much. Enjoy X Factor.